Hey y'all, it is Disha Rosetta, and I have yet another story to tell. This particular story has to deal with being stalked. I do mean stalked, Stalked, by a former landlord. This was when I was living in Charlotte. I was living in uptown Charlotte, had a beautiful three-story townhouse. Well, it was apartment townhouse and unit. I absolutely loved it. And I got into a situation where my landlord, I was basically given the option of being evicted or moving. I was in a commercial lease, which was illegal, so there was a lot of back and forth. Not anything really heavily negative, at least not from my perspective, but obviously his perspective was something different. Um, when I left that apartment, I went to Los Angeles, and but before I left that apartment, I actually sold my car, and there was maybe a week or so in between me selling my car and when I left, so I got a rental car at a buy here, pay here lot. Now, this is before my incident and situation with the rental car in LA. So this is where the whole idea came from with the buy here, pay here rentals, because you can get them cheaply. You have to have a credit card and all that good stuff. So got a rental car. This is part of the story. Got a rental car when it was time for me to get on a plane. I left the rental car and the keys and got on the plane, went about my life in LA, had my great times, my trials, my tribulations there. And then there came a point where I decided to come back to the Southeast, and I came back to Charlotte, and I went to teach, which is something that I've done over the years off and on. And I was teaching at CMS, where you have to have a background check. Background came back clear, and this was after the time of the rental car situation in California, so I knew that I was good to go, because you can't teach if you've got negative stuff on your background, right? So go through training. My first week of teaching, at the end of my first week, first or second week, I can't remember exactly, the principal comes to my classroom before the day is over and tells me to come see him before he leaves. And I immediately had a bad feeling about what he said, because it felt like he was hiding something. It felt like he was hiding some kind of sadness. Couldn't figure out what it was, but I had had a good day, good week with the kids, so, you know, no biggie. I go to the office at the end of the day, and there are two police officers, or no, there's the security officer at the school and a Charlotte Mecklenburg police officer. And they asked me if I was aware that there was a warrant out for my arrest. I was not aware that there was a warrant out for my arrest. Apparently, again, paperwork with the rental car did not get turned in. Somebody made a mistake, so they had reported the car as lost or stolen, and I was the responsible party. Now, they had the car, but somebody didn't do the paperwork appropriately. So there was a warrant for my arrest. Not a high value warrant or whatever you call it, because I had passed the CMS, which is Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools, background check. So you would think if you had a warrant that would come up in your background check. It did not. So the police officer, there was a CVS down the street, and I was teaching at Mallard Creek High School. I was teaching marketing at Mallard Creek High School. He said that there is a CVS down the street. I'll put you in the front, and we'll go down to the CVS, and then I'll put you in handcuffs in the back. And, I said, okay. So he puts me in handcuffs, but he handcuffs me in the front, and he allows me to have my cell phone so that I can call, I don't remember exactly who. I called a girlfriend, and I think I may have called my parents. I'm not sure. But I wasn't, that worried, because the police officer said, based off of what they could see, that I would be able to be released on my own recognizance, which was important because it was a Friday and I was not trying to be up in jail for the weekend. You feel me? So we get to the jail, and I'm processed, and find out that it's about this rental car, and I'm like, the car was returned. This was literally years ago. I don't, what's the deal? So they allowed me to bail myself out, bail on signature, so I didn't have to pay anything, and I got a taxi back home. And later, the next day or the day after, I started getting text messages from a number I did not recognize. And the messages started off with you out, and you out yet? And I responded with, a question mark, and then with, who is this? And then the messages were, well, I guess you are out. And the messages got more and more menacing. And then I reached out to a girlfriend of mine that I had told about the situation. And I said, this is like starting to creep me out. Because in the messages, I recognized that the person that was sending the messages was the reason for me being arrested. Or no, the person that was sending the messages was threatening me, and I had thought that they had something to do with me being arrested. So, excuse me, the next week I had to go to HR at CMS because, you get arrested at the school, HR is going to know and I was put on leave. I was put on paid leave while they investigated. The HR person told me, he asked me, he's like, is there anybody that has it out for you? Is there anybody that doesn't like you? And I thought that was very strange, because while people may not like me, I don't know anybody that, is that vindictive that like had it out for me. And I could not think of anyone. And he said, well, someone called the CMS police department. So the school has its own police department that works in conjunction with the city police. So someone had called the school police department and said that I was a wanted felon and that I needed to be arrested. And they didn't just call the police office. They called the head of the police department. So they basically had to take action because of the way that the call came in. So this is all the information that I got from the HR person. So putting that together and with the text messages that I received, I realized that this was my former landlord that I did in fact owe some money to, and that was unhappy with the fact that I had only paid him a partial amount of the money that was owed. I found out that this was the man that had been texting me, that he called the school and had me arrested, that he had been stalking me, following my movements from North Carolina to Los Angeles, and that he knew when I came back to Charlotte. I'm pretty sure I know how he knew, because I was looking for an apartment in a particular area, and I think one of the people that I applied with the apartment knew him. There's some connection there, because there came a point where that person no longer returned my phone calls. So he knew that I was back in Charlotte. He knew that I was working for the school, and his whole thing was he wanted his money and he wanted me to suffer. Now, why would you do that? Why would you have someone arrested that has a good gainful employment that owes you money? Why not, reach out to them and say, hey, can you start paying me again? Or why not, sue them or get the courts involved, right? Why go to the point of having them arrested? I still don't understand it. Really don't care, because he's a sick individual, obviously. So once I realized that this was the case and that he had basically jeopardized my employment, I was advised to get a restraining order. So I got a immediate temporary restraining order. That was good for, I think, maybe 10 days. And then I had to go back to court to get it extended. And I have never been so shook in my life. Even being pulled over by the police that time did not shake me as much as knowing that someone had been following my movements, had it out for me, and was literally trying to destroy my life, and had said as much, that they were trying to destroy my life. Now, during this time as well, what I did not know until a week later was that I was pregnant. And I know that everything, I know why biologically I lost that child, but I also believe that the stress of that situation had a lot to do with my miscarriage. And it was not my first one, unfortunately. And instead of being hospitalized this time like I had been in the past, I was given medication to fight infection. So I was dealing with the trauma of having been stalked, the trauma of having been arrested at my place of employment, and the trauma of losing a child. Yeah. So with all of that, I was given a is either the initial period of time was either like a 1 year or a 2 year restraining order where he was not allowed to contact my friends, my family, or my employers. That if we and he had to stay 500 feet away from me. If we were to find ourselves in public, he would have to be in public or in a public situation. He would have to be the one to remove himself if I realized that he was there. So that is the story of me being stalked by my landlord. And it's also the story of the third time that I was arrested. The third time that I was arrested the third time I was arrested, and then the second time I was arrested regarding a rental car mishap or mix-up. So, yeah, that case got thrown out because they had the vehicle and they recognized that it was a paperwork issue. I extended the restraining order on that particular person for several years until I got to the point where I felt like I didn't need to do it anymore. I mean, I was literally living in, there's a time I was living in Oakland, and I flew back specifically to extend the restraining order because he just, somebody that vindictive, I had no idea what else he was capable of doing. So, yeah. When I say I've been through some things, I have legit been through some things, but the key word being through. I have not gotten stuck in that energy. I have not gotten stuck in thinking that all people are bad or horrible. I mean, I've still rented a car too, not from a mom and pop place, but I still, I can look back at my experiences and recognize that they've shaped the person that I've become. I did not go back to teaching because so at first I was on, the leave because of the investigation. And then after that leave time ended, I was actually still healing from the miscarriage. And so there was the physical, mental, and emotional aspects of that. And it got to the point where I ran out of leave time. It was getting close to, I think it was either spring break or something, and there was only going to be like a month and a half left or something like that left in the school year, and I just did not feel capable of coming back to the school and putting my all into it because I just didn't have it in me at that time. But now I can talk about these things, now I can share about them, and hopefully empower you guys to know that no matter what the situation is, you can come out of it, especially if you go through it, if you do not allow yourself to stay stuck, if you find the ways to heal yourself. And for me, I did therapy, I did coaching, I did ritual work, I did journaling, I did a lot of things to heal myself so that I can have this conversation and not break down and cry. Because there definitely were times when I would think about this and I would be more than overwhelmed and depressed and filled with anxiety. So just wanted to share that. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight into me, insight into the possibilities for your life. And yeah, that's all for now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Love you. Bye.